Sharon Duymel is a figurative painter. She came to New Zealand from the Netherlands when she was 5, didn't speak a word of English, and her journey through life and motherhood has really influenced who she is today as a painter. And at the age of 50, a couple of years ago, and with 4 children, she decided now was the time, and she sits with us today with a newly minted Master of Fine Arts. Hi Sharon, thank you for coming along with us to speak with us this morning. I just want to start first of all, when you came to New Zealand as a 5-year-old and you were placed in a class without knowing a word of English. What do you remember of that time?
I still remember it really clearly, actually, feeling like you haven't got a voice. You know, I remember needing to go to the bathroom and just sitting there going,
yeah,
who do I ask? What do I ask? So it was quite intimidating as a little wee girl. I remember it really clearly. Yeah, it was something you had to work through.
Yeah. And as you sit here today, and I think you're 52 now, a few years have rolled by, you are very much a New Zealander, but do you think you still view New Zealand and the world through the eyes of an immigrant?
Yes and no. I think yes, in respects of I've been raised by Dutch parents and with heavy accents, and you know they still talk the same talk and walk the same walk, which has definitely had an influence on me. But I feel very much a Kiwi, having been raised in the West Coast beaches and you know the New Zealand environment. I think I really feel like a New Zealander. Yeah.
Do you remember the origins of the interest, I guess, in art? Where did that come from?
I think it must just be inherent or genetic. I'm drawn to creative visual things. I'm very influenced by what's going on around me in my environment. And when I have tried to apply myself in more formal situations, I find myself drawn back to the creative side of things. It's just who I am.
And is there a family history in Holland?
Actually, yes. My mother's father was a fine artist in Holland.
Oh, wow.
In fact, I've got a painting that he gave me when I got on the ship to come to New Zealand that he'd done for me of a parrot. And then my father's father, he was a fine artist as well in Utrecht, where I was born. So it's definitely in my genes. I never thought I would become an artist when I was at school. I never considered becoming an artist. It was just kind of developed in me as I matured. And you kind of find your way. You kind of find who you are inside of yourself as you grow.
Were you one of those kids or one of those high school students who was, you know, brilliant at art?
I do remember the art teacher telling me I needed to take school C art because I was very talented. And I asked my sister's advice, and she said, oh, he's just saying that because he needs to keep his job. Don't believe him.
And did you take school C arts?
No.
Right. Okay.
Nope.
And so what did you do? Tell me about university and your relationship with art at that time.
Yeah, so I was interested in getting into the creative industries and advertising and that sort of thing. So I thought, well, the only way to do that is to do a marketing degree. So I was doing accounting and economics and maths and computer science, and went to university and started a Bachelor of Commerce and found myself sitting at my desk every night drawing pictures of women.
Yeah.
Like Madonna's and that from ancient Russian relic books that I'd bought in secondhand bookstores.
Sketching.
And I've still got some of those sketches. In fact, I've got them framed because I like them. And never really thought much of it at the time until later in life when I picked up a paintbrush. Yeah.
In between all of that, there were 4 children. As well. I mean, have you been on quite a journey to include sort of 4 children and ultimately now where you are with a Master of Fine Arts? What do you remember about those years? We always, you know, have, I think, times when we look back and you've had a crossroads or you've had a pivot point or something happened that changed the course of your life. When did you start to lean into your art more?
Not until after my 3rd child, and really more than anything, I picked it up as a hobby because I was passionate about it. I met a girlfriend who was painting, and I thought her work was incredible, and I was like, wow, I want to do that. That's so cool. And so I started painting, and I did night classes and day classes, and that kind of progressed. Because I think maybe I wasn't considering that it would be a career, because, you know, not many people can be an artist as a career. So, but because I had the opportunity as a young mother to do it as a hobby, it kind of gave me that space to start looking at how I could do more of it. Yeah.
Very early on in Jacinda Ardern's leadership as Prime Minister, you painted a picture of her, a portrait of her.
Yeah.
And that's when I first saw your art.
Yeah.
And it was very early on in her time as a leader. Tell me about that painting and tell me about the origins of the idea.
Yeah, it's really interesting, that painting, because it's caused, you know, a reasonable amount of sort of questions, because I painted Jacinda and people assume that I'm a Labour supporter and a big fan of hers, but it wasn't that at all. It was purely because, I mean, she had, the image that I painted was her face in a mosque in Christchurch just after the shootings, and she was a very new mum, like she'd only just given birth to her baby. And when I saw her face, she expressed so much emotion that went out to those poor people who lost, you know, their loved ones. But I could see in her the emotions of a new young mother. You know, when you first have a baby, a newborn baby in your arms, you feel so vulnerable that you need to protect your baby. And I could see that in her, and it came out. And she wasn't crying, but she may as well have been. And I just really connected with that. I wanted to paint the expression on her face as a young mother, and the love that she gave out for the people.
The rawness and the vulnerability, connected with a lot of that. And well, that's the theme of so much of your art, you know, women, mothering, vulnerability and strength. And I think few would argue that at the time of the mosque shootings that Jacinda Ardern portrayed both of those remarkably. And that, I think, was it hung in Parliament?
Yeah.
And did you ever get any feedback about what she thought?
Yes, I did. It ended up in an exhibition at the New Zealand Portrait Gallery, and then it was picked up by the Parliamentary Art Collection. So now it's hanging in the Whips corridor. And actually, recently, somebody sent me the link. There was on Twitter. There was a wee clip with her and a New Zealand journalist, and he was asking her about resigning as the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and she talked about that very briefly, and talked about the only thing that'll be left now is the painting of me in the corridor. And she kind of welled up and said how meaningful that was for her, that would be hanging there for people to remember her by. And I was blown away. I was like, whoa, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I was really touched. Yeah.
And isn't it interesting? You've never met her, but there was this connection through strength and vulnerability, something that you needed to find the strength after your vulnerability as a child and through challenging relationships. And you kind of captured her in that same space of two emotions, yet you've never met.
Yeah. As a woman, from one woman to another.
Yeah. What influences your art? And I say that because I'm drawn to your art, and everybody sees something different in art. When I look at your art, I see vulnerability and women and strength, and you very much focus on, I guess, the politic of the female body. Tell me about that, and why is that?
I think what I've realised more and more of late is, particularly after having completed my master's, is that I very much use my creative expression to voice what's going on inside my head, and kind of feeling like I never really found my voice as a young child. And then as I grew into a young mother in probably quite a controlling relationship, I was expressing my voice through my paintings. And I think that's why particularly I use the feminine figure to invoke what's going on in my head. So I'm kind of trying to express physically through a woman's body what's psychologically going on in my head. Yeah, and kind of using the body politic to express my voice without saying a word. Yeah.
And it comes out. When I look at your art, I see something. I know a little bit about your background. Tell me about some of that, because, I think of your art, the women, a lot of them are naked, and some of the imagery, the spine is very strong. What influences that?
I really think that it's me trying to find a space in where I can be empowered and find some form of agency, but without too much confrontation. And so I think by expressing it visually in a painting, I can talk about what's going on in my head without having to actually talk about it. And I think that's probably why a lot of my work does seem very vulnerable and raw, because it actually is. But it's an easier way for me to express it, and it's kind of the only way that I can express it, because I'm not that good at voicing my opinion a lot of the time.
I know you just mentioned before that you were in a situation which was quite controlling. We don't have to go into too many details in these spaces for you, but you certainly wouldn't be the first woman or the last woman whose life has been influenced by that, and also other factors I know we've talked about before in your childhood too. Are you comfortable to talk about some of those influences and how they've played out?
I don't know. Yeah. I think one of the reasons I love painting figuratively is because when we all look at a figurative work, we can resonate and relate to what we see. Like if you see the fingernails and the arm and the anatomy, and I think that's why I like painting the nude flesh, is because when you look at it, you can relate to it and you connect with it because it's so familiar. And on that level, I can kind of reach out and kind of talk to people about what's going on. Whereas if you were just looking at a painting of a book, it's a book. Whereas if you're looking at a painting of a human being, you immediately feel drawn and connected on an emotional level.
Yeah. I know we've discussed as well aspects of, your past where we've talked about control, we've talked about abuse as a child and things as well. I see some of your imagery where the women are in positions of strength and position of vulnerability. And is that what's playing out in some of that artwork?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. I think it's probably a very vulnerable subject, actually, because it's a point where I'm torn between having moments of feeling empowered and strong inside myself, and then that resonates in my painting, or moments where I'm feeling incredibly vulnerable and diminished or reduced in some way, which then comes out in my work as well, which in my very most recent painting that I completed last week. I don't know why I did it. I didn't even need to do it because it's not for my upcoming exhibition. And I just had to get it out of my system, and then stood back and went, okay.
So what did it show? What did you see?
It shows very much how I'm feeling at the moment, which is going through a difficult time, challenged with having to make decisions I don't want to make. And it just comes out in my work.
It's like your voice on the linen that you paint on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very, it's a deep exposure on some level.
Yeah.
So you almost want to paint and hang it up and then quickly run away.
Yeah. And when you paint, tell me a little bit about the emotional state you're in, because do you relive some of what you've been through in the past? Do you feel emotional at times? Is it
while I'm painting?
Yeah.
Yeah, that changes, I think. Sometimes I do, because I get lost in my work. Like I can start and, all of a sudden 6 hours later and I'm like, whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. But then at other times you feel more disconnected, which it's quite difficult to paint when you're feeling disconnected or distracted. Yeah, which kind of inhibits your ability to produce work that you're trying to get out. Yeah, it can be challenging. Obviously, it's, you can't just sit, it's not robotic. You've got to wait for it to kind of come. Yeah.
Women feature so heavily in all of your work, and you've painted and continue to paint series that focus on women. Tell me about some of the themes that have come through in those series and exhibitions.
Yeah. So There was a pathos series, which is kind of showing an emotional vulnerability, physically through the body from a woman's perspective. And I do often paint my eldest daughter, my firstborn child, figuratively, because she's such a familiar body for me to paint. I just love painting her, but I think I'm expressing my emotion and my, what's going on psychologically in my head, but through her body, which was very much in the pathos series. And then the body language series was very much focused on her, where I did, as you know, the backbone showing strength of a woman, but also her tumbling, struggling through daily life and having to balance all the responsibilities as a mother and a wife and a daughter and then I did their mother's daughters.
Yes.
Yeah, which was a whole bunch of young women who I have great admiration for, because this new generation of women, which my daughters are so empowered, and they own their power, and they own their bodies, and they just they're just like staring straight at you going, yeah, we're naked, yeah, we're hot, and yeah, we rock. I mean, 3 of them are doctors, 2 of them were lawyers. I mean, they're just such incredible chicks, and I have so much admiration for them.
And you painted them, I think, in a group, didn't you? They were at your house and they were like, let's close off. And that was amazing.
Didn't give a toss.
When you think about, because I want to talk about your journey through motherhood as well, because I think that's really interesting. But when you think about your daughters, now, we're similar age, and we think about what a 20-something-year-old young woman has in front of her, I don't necessarily think their lives are easier, but there's perhaps less restrictions in their life. How do you view the world that your daughters are transcending through versus you at their age?
It's really different. I think it's really different. Well, it was different for me anyway. They seem to have this. Confidence in themselves as women, as young women. Whereas I think as a young woman, I always felt I had to almost apologize for my presence, or, wasn't quite good enough, or perhaps was a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. Maybe it was because I was Dutch. I don't know. Maybe I just had less self-confidence than they do, but I find them incredible. I'm so proud of them. Yeah.
You say they seem like they have confidence. I think they probably do have confidence, right? Which I think even women of our age, sometimes our generation still struggle with. But we live vicariously through them, I think, at times. Your journey through motherhood, tell me a little bit about that, because I imagine your firstborn, how you mothered your firstborn versus, and I know you've done a series on motherhood, versus how you've mothered your fourthborn, probably a little different.
Yeah, very different. So I think, my most recent series is called Mother, and it's kind of showing a mother with kids going here, there, and everywhere, because that's what it feels like when you're a mother, particularly a mother of 4, and it's hectic, and it's intense, and it's chaotic, and you've got so many responsibilities on so many levels, and I think I just really wanted to portray that. And my firstborn, it was very much just me and her. Like, I could literally scoop her up under my arm and do anything, and we were just buddies. But then by the time you get to your 4th child, it's like you're just...
Where did I leave that child?
I remember, what do they say? With your firstborn, you drop the dummy on the ground, you pick it up and you boil it for 10 minutes to sterilize it, and then give it back to the baby. And by the time you get to your 3rd or 4th, you literally just pick it
straight back.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah.
But I think that a relaxed mum is a really good mum as well.
Yeah.
And I think that can rub off on your child and make your child quite not an intense, entitled baby. They're quite cruisy, which is nice.
Yeah. What do they think of your art? I guess your eldest daughter, who's the subject of quite a bit of it, what's her perspective on it?
Yeah, she's really cool about it. I think on some levels she loves it, and on other levels she probably finds it a little bit. It's very, it's her naked body, but she's pretty relaxed. But I think she feels it's really cool in the sense that it's empowering me. And so she wants to support me in that. And she can see what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And she feels that it's really valuable. Yeah.
What do you see when you look back at your series or when you look at your own art? I know artists will say, well, it's not for me to tell you what to see, but what do you see when you look through how your art has developed, notwithstanding the latest series for your masters? What do you see when you look at what you've painted and the women and the way you've portrayed women?
I'm surprised that that I do paint women constantly. It's not like visually I think that paintings of women are beautiful or anything. It's only because I'm trying to talk about what's going on in my head. And I think I do that through a feminine body because I am a woman. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. And what is going on in your head, does that change as well?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I know you've just said recently about what you've painted. Do you think you've found your way to some form of peace, or are you still on that journey through what occurred in your childhood, through challenging relationship later in life and the chrysalis, if you like, of who you are now? Are you finding your peace through your art, do you think?
It's different.
Your face says it's a work in progress.
It's very much a work in progress. But it is definitely, I'm finding more and more that it's definitely where I'm finding my power, or I'm tapping into my inner strength through my art, and it's helping me to I suppose unlock a lot of what's going on in my head. It's definitely something that supports the trials and tribulations of my life, but is definitely still very much in progress. Yeah.
Can you look at other people's art and see emotion in it too, or trauma?
Well, it's only when I do that I can connect with the art. I mean, I look at a lot of art and go, it's really pretty, but I don't get it. I think one of the things I love about being able to paint figuratively is that I want to reach out and connect with the viewer, and I want them to find it relatable and understand the emotions that I'm trying to talk about. And for them, like, they might feel something completely different than what I felt when I was painting it, but on some level, if they can connect with it and they can take it with them and it can help them through a thought or an issue that day, then I feel like I've succeeded, because it's a form of me connecting with other people, I think, and almost trying to build on my own growth and do that for other people as well.
One little quirk I want to talk about, or maybe it's not a quirk, I think it's interesting. Tell me about what you paint on.
I paint on raw Belgium linen.
Right.
And unstretched as well, so it's literally just a piece of linen. And I love it when the edges are all raw and there's threads hanging down. And I love that because I think, I don't know, I think, there's a big part of me where my European heritage or my Dutch heritage connects, kind of almost echoes things of the old masters of the past by painting lots of figures, but then also on some level the palette is very natural. I love just painting the flesh, and then on the raw linen, and it's almost like wood, concrete, steel, like it's all natural fibers and colors and fabrics. And I think that's very much because I want to talk about natural stuff, real stuff. Yeah.
It's important to say, I think, that you've recently been nominated for some awards. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I've had a good year so far. Earlier in the year, I was selected as a finalist in the Molly Morpeth Canada Award, which is based down in Whakatane, which was really exciting. And then just a few weeks ago, I was selected as a finalist in the Parking Drawing Award, which was the recent painting I did of Mother, with the mother with the children going everywhere, which is really exciting because that's part of the New Zealand Fine Arts Academy down in Wellington.
Amazing.
So I'm going to that on Tuesday night. And then I have also been selected as a finalist in an Australian art award based in New South Wales. It's actually called the Naked and Nude Art Prize.
Right. Well, you've got a good place in there. That's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things I admire about you and just talking to you, I mean, many of us go through life and there's no one really knows what's going on inside, but you can't really avoid that with you. It's sort of like you've used bolt cutters through your sternum and you've put everything from, trauma of childhood and whatever on a canvas. It's quite out there. It's quite remarkable. What would complete the circle of this journey from, didn't take school C art, picked up a paintbrush, did a few sketches at uni, had 4 children, and then ultimately went on and achieved a Master of Fine Arts? What would complete the circle of the journey for you now, do you think?
For me, I think validation would be achieved by being represented by a reputable dealer that would see in my work what we've discussed today, because I think it's valid in the art world. I think so much art is more just pretty, and I feel quite strong about what I'm talking about, and I would love that to be out there in the world, not just in New Zealand, like possibly Australia or possibly even a little bit further where there's audiences a little bit wider. But I would love to be represented by somebody who appreciates and can see what I'm doing.
Yeah, I guess the industry here is reasonably small. And ultimately, what do you hope women or women who may have experienced a similar journey through life that you do or have, what do you hope they might see in your art or find in your art?
Well, I think most definitely that they can look at it and go, oh my God, I can so relate to that. I so can relate to what's going on right there, and that's a part of me in my life, and I love that, and I want that to be visible for me to just look at for a little reminder every day, and realize that it's not just me feeling that, but there are other women out there who are feeling this and going through this and have these challenges every day. And I think on some level, if I can connect with the other woman, that would be a really lovely justification for what I do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon Duymel. You're amazing. Thank you.